evening, everyone. Welcome again to Wisdom Wednesday Live Talk Show. This is where we believe that mindset is everything. So, hello, Wagwan, wherever you are from. I'm happy to have you. And if you have not yet hit that subscribe button, please do so. This evening, I'm happy to have you. We are going to be exploring a very well needed topic, I believe, one that maybe for quite some time there hasn't been much focus on it, but thank God this evening that we're able to explore it. And we know that it will bring back so much memory and for those who are still going through their healing process. But we are grateful this evening that I have with me three beautiful ladies that are going to help us go through, explore, and if you are know anyone or if you are you yourself are going through this phase, that they will be of help to you. I'll soon let you meet them, okay? But it is said that trauma is perhaps the most avoided, ignored, belittled, denied, understood, misunderstood, and untreated cause of human suffering. Also, it says that childhood trauma can lead to an adulthood spent in survival mode, afraid to plant roots, to plan for their future, to trust, to let the joy in. It is a blessing when there's a shift from surviving to thriving. It is not simple, but there is more than just survival. And I tell you, as I promised, I have with me three wonderful ladies, and I'm now going to introduce them to you. At this time, I'm introducing to you Renee Mcfarlane Ellis. She's a wife and a mother of one son. Her zeal for being an agent of change has led her into the education field. She has been working in the classroom as a special educator for the past 11 years. She's also a singing evangelist and the founder of Rents and Rents, where she plans and executes fundraisers and various outreach programs. But above all, she is a young Christian woman who loves God supremely and people sincerely. Help me welcome Renee Mcfarlane Ellis.
Hi,
Hello,
everybody.
how are you doing
Good to
this
be
evening?
here.
Awesome. Happy
I
to
am a little,
go
I'm a
ahead.
little bit under the weather, but I am still here giving God thanks.
Awesome. Happy to have you. Thank you, Renee. And at this time, I introduce to you Shanice Leyla Bogo. She's a woman of great emotional strength. She is a woman who operates on purpose and who has gone through many of life's pain. But she is determined daily to fulfill her passion. This is to help release people from trauma, emotional bondage, and mental illnesses through science, faith, and personal experiences. She is a wife, a mom, and an author. Also, a transformational and international speaker and educator. a mental health advocate, founder and director of a suicide prevention organization called Will to Live Jamaica Foundation, and the founder and CEO of our online trauma recovery coaching business called Mind, Body, Spirit Accelerate. She runs a private Facebook group called Trauma Healing and Recovery Group, which serves as an introduction to her trauma recovery program. In her private Facebook group, she helps individuals overcome the effects of grief and loss, emotional brokenness, rape, trauma, childhood turmoil, molestation, abuse, low self esteem, hurts, pain, guilt, and shame, and self hate. In general, her role is to educate and keep individuals become unstuck, say bye bye to trauma, and live fulfilled, purposeful, and accelerated life. Help me welcome Shanice Leyla Bogo.
Hello,
Hello,
everybody. Thank
hello.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Samantha. Thank you for having me. It's good to be on your show tonight.
Thanks for being here.
You are most welcome.
And at this time, I welcome to you Tanya Green. She is a 31-year-old Christian woman from Toronto. She has been married to her husband and Andre for 5 years. Together, they have two boys and a little girl on the way. Could you tell? Oh, she's so cute. Personally, she is a case management officer in the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services with the Government of Ontario. Her job is to gracefully guide broken families through the process of paying and receiving child spousal support. Most importantly, Tanya is a child of God. She was baptized at the age of 12, and ever since, the power and love of Christ has transformed her life and have given her a promise of hope. She has served as youth leader and worship leader for a number of years, and she is passionate about both. Her testimony of growth and perseverance amidst the trauma of having a parent diagnosed with bipolar disorder is a tribute to the goodness of Almighty God. With her life, God has proven that in the midst of turmoil, His peace prevails. And when things are utterly falling apart, He can make them beautiful again. Today, Tanya loves to pour into Christian women through prayer and mentorship. Later this year, she will be launching Converse with My Sister, a mentorship network designed to connect and empower Christian women. Help me welcome Tanya Green.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Prophetess Samantha. So honored to be here. So thankful.
Lovely. Happy to have you, beautiful ladies. And audience, we are ready to dive into this wonderful topic. And we have seen and heard, we have heard that in fact these ladies know what they're going to be talking about tonight, right? All right, and at this time we're going to be having Mrs. Bogo. She's going to be sharing with us because as we go through, we want to know what is this trauma we have been talking about all evening? And they've been saying that they know and this they do this and Mrs. Bogo said that she has a trauma group and all of these things. So she's going to go ahead and she's going to tell us what it is and what are some of the signs and how it is it that it affects persons. Over to you.
Hello again, everybody. I hope that everybody had a wonderful day today. I'm going to start by defining trauma. Um, this is a topic that I find that it's on the lips of a lot of persons, especially nowadays. But the truth is, it can be very loosely used, it can be overused, and we might have missed what exactly this is. Um, as you rightly started out, Samantha, the it is one area of life that is highly untapped, but it is that aspect of life that it influences, and it can be found at the root or the base of a lot of situations. But because of that, we have seen a lot of misdiagnosis even in the medical field, because the truth is trauma is hard to deal with. It is hard to deal with. It is expensive to fund, and that's a whole another ball game and arena. And this is societal, where it's I heard one psychologist say it's considered one of the biggest social I forgot his exact words, but it was almost like one of the greatest social problems now in the world, because it is so deep, but at the same time, it is highly overlooked. Is it because we are not taught about it enough? Is it because it is swept under the rug? Is it because it is minimized? What exactly is it? We're not sure, but it is good that there are platforms like this that will take the time out to address and to give it some time to really see through it and to try to get to the bottom of it. Now, trauma is, according to the DSM-5, any situation that is so overbearing or so overwhelming that it paralyzes or cripples the person's body. And this is not a physical crippling, but this is a state of feeling like there is no way over this. There's no way out of this. I cannot go on from this. My life ends here. And it has been months or years, and this feeling is still trapped in the body. So trauma is more than just a memory. It's an experience that lives in your body. Your body does not forget it, even when you're intellectually past it, even when you can reason it away. So even when you can put a nice little idea behind why it happened, what happened, and sometimes some persons can't. But the fact of the matter is, this experience is trapped in the body so much that it has been years or months and you still cannot shake the experience. So it is a horrid experience. It is subjective, it is relative, because what traumatizes you might not traumatize me. So it is not one situation that will cripple everybody's life after experiencing that. It is relative, and it is not the same for everybody. Now, the next stage to that is your body now lives in what we call the fight or flight, freeze or fawn state. And we'll get into that some more later on, where this is one method that your body chose to survive after it has gone through what it went through. So either that person, and some of the effects you asked Samantha were, one, whether that person shuts down. We call that the hypoactive state, where that person is no longer interested in experiencing life. Not even the daily experiences of life brings joy. They can't even bother to feel pain, joy, happiness. And this is not something that they choose to do, but this is just an effect of trauma. This is the response of the brain. And you have those who are in the fight stage, where they act out. They want to be seen. That's how the stories are told from the body. They want to, that's how their cry for help is through acting out, being seen, being heard. Always in everybody's face is defensive, angry, just want to be seen, want to be heard. The next one is the fawn, which is the overcompensating, where you try to please everybody, the people pleaser, the one who wants to look right in everybody's eyes, because that's a mode of survival also. Then we have the freeze, which is you just seem helpless. Everything just helpless. You may seem like you take everything, or they're bad mouthing her. She's just taking it. They want to fight or him or her, and she's just taking it. Take for example a rape case, where the person just lays there and escapes in the mind. It's not that they chose to give up their bodies, but guess what? This is a response from the brain that says, hey, that's your survival spot, and you're going to stay in it until this ordeal is over. But the problem with trauma is, even though the experience is over, the body cannot come to terms that it's over. You still live in that trap zone. You feel like it is still happening. And that's how your brain, it keeps reliving the experience. Because guys and ladies and those online, the truth is we were made to shake it off in like 30 seconds, like animals, when there's this stressor or this attacking experience. Scientifically, we're made to shake it off. It's supposed to hit a peak at like 30 seconds, and then it comes back down as a regular, experience of fight or flight. But with trauma, people can become trapped in that trauma zone, where you are no longer functioning from the logical or frontal lobe of your brain. And it is so heavy, because many times we feel it's people who are not moving forward. And we blame the victims, and we point fingers, and we might say, hey, but you don't want to get better, but you are still repeating the same offense. Every single year you come back with the same thing. Every time you tell the same story. It is not that, guys. It is something that literally affects the mind, the brain, the body. So when you do a scan for somebody who is traumatized, PTSD, post-traumatic stress, you will see where the non-activity is reflecting. And on the emotional side, or the right side of the brain, you find the limbic system messages sent to that part of the body. That's the part that is now active. That's the part where the person now lives in. They are reactive. Nothing is logical to them. If they see a little boy walking, they might start to run, because to them, that's an attacker. It reminds them they're triggered. Anything can trigger a response. Anything can bring on the feeling of being attacked. The feeling still lives in the body. And there's a quote that, or an expression that's made by another psychologist called, or is, the body keeps the score. The body holds on to that story. And sometimes when you can't put it in words, your body will show it. Your body will tell the story, because it keeps the score. So in general, that is trauma, and that those are some of the ways in which people can be affected. The acting out, the shutting down, overcompensating, and just taking everything because they've checked out. They have dismissed and disconnected from the real world, from reality, and into a world where they have escaped. And it's not anything that they chose to do, but this is just a survival mode for this person. Because the body's number one priority, ladies, is to survive, is to survive, is to preserve itself. And health and beauty and popularity does not come into play when the body wants to survive. It will cancel out those things. Even your immune system shuts down because its number one mode is to survive. And that is why we find early deaths in people who are traumatized. Because guess what? If you are highly stressed, that's what happens when you're traumatized. You live in this stress zone because it thinks it is attacked. So it is highly stressed. It's trying to fight something that's not there. And it causes that person to be stressed. And that is the root cause of a lot of early deaths. There's no other way around it. That's just the ultimate, where that person's life is now shaved off. Like a next 5 years that they could have lived, a 10-year span is shaved off because the body can't carry you being healthy and you being stressed. It's almost like saying, I always say this, the body's saying, choose one, sister, choose one. It's either you're going to be stressed or remove yourself from this environment, or you're going to be normal, healthy. I can release blood flow to the other parts of your body. But a traumatized person, that blood flow goes to the limbic system to fight, to escape, to run. But there's nothing there. So we're really just fighting an unseen enemy.
Wow, wow, wow. Deep, deep stuff. And while I sit here and I listen, I have been doing it, but more often recently. I, you might see random people on the street, and the natural thought comes to mind. What is their problem? What's their problem? Why they? And then right there, I'm training my mind to say, no, always see through the eyes of grace, and always think that what could have possible happened to such an individual rather than thinking what is their problem. And at this time, I'm going to have Renee sharing with us her personal experience. Over to you, Renee.
Thank you, Samantha. I I was just sitting here listening to Mrs. Bogle and just taking it all in, and I couldn't help but to reflect on my own experiences because some of what she spoke about, I have been through it. I have been there. Um, you know, I there was a time when I could not talk about my past experiences, my traumatic experiences, until just think it was 3 weeks ago. I had a series on my own program where I started talking about my story, my song, my journey with PTSD, because I was actually diagnosed with PTSD. I can recall when I think I was about 8 years old. I don't think I was older than that. I experienced my first sexual molestation. I was touched in places I am not supposed to be touched. And I experienced sexual molestation, I experienced rape, and all of these things happened over, I think, approximately a 10-year span. And as Mrs. Bogo mentioned, there was a time when I just shut down. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was just in a place by myself. I wasn't sure what to do, where to go, who to turn to. I was just I was lost. I felt like I was between a rock and a hard place. I felt like the walls were crumbling down on me. I wanted to take my life, you know? So many things were going through my head. So many thoughts. I felt I can't even find the words to explain how I was feeling because there was a time when I was living in denial. There was a time when I used to tell myself that these things did not happen to me because I wanted to feel good. So I tell myself, no, you did not go through this until in my adolescent years while going to teachers college, I used to be in the guidance counselor's office very often, very, very often because I wanted somebody to talk to. I needed help, and I recognized that I needed help because it was getting out of hand. I attempted suicide several times, but praise be to God, I am still here as a living testimony that God still answers prayers. And it reached the point where I actually had to go to the hospital twice per month, one for therapy and one for medication after being diagnosed with PTSD. And I tell you, the journey was not easy because after passing through the denial stage, I was at the stage where I was basically reliving what happened to me. I felt like everything was happening all over again. And I started to have a whole lot of negative thoughts. As I said before, I attempted suicide several times. I walk out in the road for something to hit me, and there's just always somebody there to pull me back. I sleep at the seaside one night, I just wanted to walk out in the water until it covers me. But like I said, God had a different plan for my life. He has a purpose for my pain. And I am here today, to say that it's not over until God says it's over. And I have not gotten through it because I think that trauma is something that you haven't gotten over it. I think that trauma is something that you can't really get over. You get through it, right? You get through it and not really over it. And I can remember this particular experience as I listened to Mrs. Bogo talk about just giving in, like for example being raped and giving in, just that's the place where your mind tell your body that all right, this is survival mode. And I was at that place. I just I just laid there like not not really thinking about what really is happening to me. I just felt lifeless. I just felt breathless. And I tell myself, so whatever happened, happened. But I thank God that I'm a survivor.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Survivors never quit. They stand to the end.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. In spite of this evening, Renee can share with us her testimony and let us know that survivors never quit. They stand to the end. So I hope that touch somebody wherever you are and let you know don't give up, don't give in, hold on. And you may not get over what you'll get through it. At this time, we're going to have Tanya. She's going to share her experience with us. Over to you, Tanya.
Thank you, Samantha, and hello again, everyone. Thank you so much, Renee, for sharing. Goodness, it's so moving. Shanice, the information that you were sharing, it's so potent and so important. And the very point that Prophetess Samantha started with about trauma being the most avoided and untreated human suffering. I wrote down quickly why. I wrote down, why would that be? Why is it so difficult? But Shanice pointed to it while she was speaking. She said that, it's hard. And in my notes, I just said, I put down it must be so hard to pinpoint, to diagnose, and to heal. And I think that so many of our traumas are caused by someone else. There are so many power structures in life. There are so many systems of oppression that allow for trauma to stay and to be perpetuated, I think, in people's lives. So anyway, it's just so very deep. And as Shanice was speaking about trauma and really just defining it, I was just thinking about my mother. And pretty much my testimony is that I survived my mom's mental illness, and I'm moving from just surviving it to thriving in spite of her mental illness. And as much as I know personally, I've experienced trauma due to her mental illness, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional. I've experienced trauma due to her mental illness, but listening to Shanice's definition and information, I'm thinking the person carrying the most trauma is my mother. And I'm 1,000% certain that the cause of her mental illness, which is bipolar disorder, that's what it was diagnosed as. I don't really know even how long ago. um, the cause of her mental illness is, I'm 1,000% sure it's trauma, but trauma caused her mental illness, birth trauma in me, and it becomes a definite, like a very destructive cycle. But thanks be to God, I can say thanks be to God, like Renee said, that God had a different plan for my life. God didn't let my life go. And I don't want to speak too long. Just quickly, I'm trying to think of where to start now or where to continue from. But truly, I actually also wanted to say I don't want anyone to have any ill thoughts of my mother or my family when I speak about our trauma, especially in the Caribbean community, the Jamaican community. To talk about mental illness is like, just keep it under wraps. Don't say much. Don't say much, because it's shameful and it's something hard to explain. And I don't really know all the reasons why everyone wants to keep it so hush hush when the issue is very present, when the issue is so present that it's literally affecting the life of a person and her children and her livelihood. But this is just culture. And I really think I'm thankful for these discussions that are allowing us to break free from that shame culture and that silence culture, because I really feel it perpetuates the trauma. It keeps people silent, it keeps people broken, and it doesn't allow for healing. Anyway, my mom and dad were married when I was a young child, but as I'm getting older, and now that I'm at this age, at this age I'm still learning about things that have happened in my parents' marriage when I was very, very young. How my mom, with manic episodes from bipolar disorder is really generally defined as like mood swings. There are episodes of severe depression, so severe lows, and there are manic episodes, which are, they call them severe highs. When my mom is manic, she's like a person. She is very, she's, she is thinking at 1,000 miles an hour. She literally moves faster when she's manic than in her normal state. When she's manic, sometimes she will be outside with no shoes. In the wintertime, she will be outside in winter, like Canadian winter, like fully snow, minus 20 degrees. She will be outside in slippers and socks because she feels she's on a mission that she has to accomplish. Her illness, there's so much, there's actually so much to it. And I guess the most traumatizing thing personally for me is the way that it destroyed who she was becoming. Her and my father, they separated when I was very young, but her manic episodes um, took away her ability to continue to work. She bought a home She was a single mother of us 4 children. She actually bought a house in Canada like 25 years ago, almost 25 years ago. And her illness caused her to lose her job, lose her income, lose her children, because eventually at the age of 11 years old, I had to be removed from her care because her manic episodes, they became out of control. They became out of control. I remember her showing up to my school in the middle of the school day and the principal having to rush me in the office and hide me from her, you know. And it wasn't ever that she was physically violent towards her children while she was manic, but she was aggressive to other people, and just she was not you couldn't tell what might happen next and what she might do next. So I remember vividly her coming to school one day and the principal rushing me in her office and shutting the door, and I'm not even sure what else happened. They just had to cover me from my mom. um, and when I was a very young child, actually, one of the scariest things that I do remember is I was younger than 8 years old. I remember I was living in a specific home before the age of 8 years old, and my mom was ill. When I was a child, of course, I didn't understand. I just knew sometimes my mom is a little weird, but you know, you're a child. You have no idea of the extent of her illness and what it really means. But I remember one night specifically, she was ill. For some reason, she screamed at me or yelled at me, and I was a young child. It was before the age of 8, and I was so fearful. I guess I got in flight mode that night, Shanice. I put on my clothes and I ran. It was definitely nighttime. It was dark. I ran 6 blocks to where my father was living in the nighttime. It was pitch black outside. I ran away. I ran away from my mom because she was so scary. You know, she's not the general mom that I know, the everyday, you know, good mood, decent mom that everyone knows and loves as their mother, you know. So so much has transpired, of course, but what I realize, the my mom's mental illness has had birthed a serious spirit of fear in my life, um, because she spoke about spiritual things when I was a child. She spoke about enemies and, you know, demons and warfare when I was a child, but but I didn't know how to be protected and how to be covered, you know. So she talked about scary things, and I had no idea that I was protected from them. I remember not being able to sleep in my own bed for so many months. I remember being a child who lost so much sleep because I was so scared, because of just the way that she would speak when she was ill. Yeah, the way that she would speak when she was ill. Um, and I just want to say thanks be to God, because in remembering it, I think of all the sleep that I lost back then, and now that I'm an adult, yes, as much as I'm a mother and I have a family, I thank God that I can sleep now. You know, I give God thanks that He is a deliverer, and I want to say that mental illness, there is definitely, of course, there's the emotional, the soulic aspect, right? We humans are body, soul, and spirit. There's, of course, the soulic aspect, and there's a physical aspect, because when my mother is taking medication, she's a lot more calm, she's a lot more level. But there is also a spiritual aspect that is very real. And I just have to say thanks be to God for the fact that even though I was removed from her care and it was very difficult, I have to say thank you, God, because being removed from her care allowed me to live with my dad, who brought me to the church. I was able to get saved. I was able to be filled with the Holy Ghost, and to get to know God. Through knowing God, I've been delivered from spiritual attacks, of course, mental attacks as well, and I have full confidence that my mom's mental illness, as much as it's something that a doctor currently would say, you know, you're at risk because your mother, and I have a younger brother who's diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychosis. A doctor would say you're at risk, but I know I'm well because of the blood of Jesus Christ, first of all, and because He's teaching me, you know, about even about emotional wellness. God is concerned with all of us, with every aspect of our tripartite being. God is concerned, and so I'm just thankful for His deliverance in spite of. That's why I can say today I'm thriving in spite of her mental illness. She is still ill. I'm 31. She's almost 60, and she's still ill. She still has manic episodes every couple months or at least every year. This past Christmas, very difficult Christmas. She was in Jamaica, manic. I was getting calls from Jamaica saying, come get your mother this, your mother that, your mother's here, your mother's there. And it's difficult because I'm partly helpless because I can't control her. She's a grown adult as well. If she doesn't want to stay in, for example, a care facility, I can't force her to. So I've had to relinquish a lot to God. And some of the time I come off the phone with her, I don't know if it's going to be the last time. But God in His mercy has kept her and has kept me. And I just can truly say that in recent years, I used to say, in spite of my mom's illness, because of my mom's illness, I went to live with my dad and I got saved. And so maybe if I was living with my mom, I wouldn't be saved. And that was a way to cope with the pain. But I think in the past year, I've really moved from coping to healing, which is addressing the fact that my mom's mental illness destroyed a lot of things in my life, destroyed a lot of roots of good things in my life. Like my mom was a homeowner. I might have had inherited a home by now if it had not been for that, for example. However, in spite of all the things that it destroyed, I'm well, I'm standing, my mind is well, my marriage is well, my children are well, and I'm not perfect, or no one's perfect or anything, but God is with us. God is for me, covering me. And sorry if I'm taking too much time. I'll wrap up now. But in spite of it all, I'm thriving because of the goodness of God. That's where I'll stop. Thank you.
It's just awesome. It's awesome. It's touching. It's powerful. It's profound. It's anointed. It's passionate. It's just everything. And I even some of the points that I have here, you are already touching on them. Some of the misconceptions. And when we look at it, as you mentioned, Tanya, that this is real, and oftentimes we find that it is pushed under the rug. And as you mentioned, it's spiritual, and we know that we wrestle not against flesh and blood and all of those things. But I believe that there are some things that we need knowledge. That is why God has given us knowledge, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We have to handle them physically, not just spiritually. We have to know what it is. We have to deal with it. We have to know real stuff because we're in a real world and we are human beings. And we find so often that people have to deal with these things in spite that we believe in God, in spite that we are people of God. We still have things that we face, and there are still things that are in our genes and in our generation that we want to deal with, and we wish we didn't have it, but we have it. And and hence you would have gone through such an experience. But while I'm sitting here, I invited a friend, and I'm here. You need to come on if you're not here because somebody is actually relating your exact story. So if you are not here, you need to come on and watch this. So things like these, and this is what is just the passion of my heart to connect things like these because I've seen it. I've seen it. And as you mentioned, there are times when it is swept under the carpet. It is swept under the rug while people suffer. They say, okay, just don't pay no mind or go pray about it and leave it. Oh my God. But it is wonderful to sit here, Tanya, and hear your powerful and wonderful testimony. And I pray and trust that God will continue to give you the strength because you are indeed an overcomer. As we have mentioned, some of the misconceptions, we're going to throw, I'm throwing that out there. And whatever misconception you know of, you can just say maybe one or two because we want to go into how do we help one to cope with uh, the trauma and the drama that it might bring. So go over to you, Renee.
Are we talking about the misconception?
Yes.
Okay. Well, personally speaking, persons thought that I was bad. You know when them Jamaicans say she bad.
Yes.
I was labeled like that, especially among my own church folks. You know, I became withdrawn. So I was this active person in church. I was in sign language. I was praise team leader, choir director. I was in the Pathfinder Club marching band and all of these things. I was very, very active. And then I became withdrawn. As Mrs. Bogle mentioned earlier, I became very withdrawn. And so I I was no longer interested in things that I used to love. And persons saw that in a different way. They did not try to find out, all right, what is wrong with this young lady who was so actively involved in church, and now she's withdrawn and she no longer participates. Persons took that differently. They thought that, oh, I was a bad little girl. Um, may have only for man, and all of these things. So persons often think that, you know, they don't try to find out the underlying factors of a particular behavior. Instead, they start to, they try to speculate. They start to think that, oh, she bad long time and she did do this long time and all of these things. But we need to take the time out to to find out the reasons people behave the way they do. If you know that they didn't used to behave a particular way, there's always a reason.
So true. So true. Over to you, Shanice.
Renee took my topic, my point. That was what I was going to talk about in the sense that when it comes down to the misconception with childhood trauma, one of the biggest points or one of the biggest things that society points out or wants to hold on to, and it's because of the fact that they don't really understand what's happening, and it's easier to point the finger on the offender. So the main thing is that with childhood trauma, one of the biggest misconceptions is that what happens to the child is it's minimal. It can be outgrown. They're young. They can simply box it off. They're not even going to remember it, all of that. But as I pointed out, you see, even if they don't intellectually remember, because remember, trauma is not a memory so much. There's some parts of your trauma you won't even remember. Memories are like marbles. They roll around, they roll away, they come together. You can't merge them, you can't really pull them apart because they're just rolling. And the one of the thing is that your body's going to remember. Your body's going to let somebody know something is wrong. And the other thing is a lot of kids are labeled as bad. And that's the very thing I wanted to point out, that the child is not the problem in childhood trauma. Because many times the child, and most if not all the times, the child does not know they are traumatized. Because they don't know what trauma is. Like, how do you were not born telling this child, oh, you're in a traumatic home or you're in a home that's going to traumatize you down the road. No, you don't know that you're traumatized. You're living what seems normal to you. And so the children are pinpointed as crazy, worthless, bad, mix up, disgusting, like him father, like him mother. Um, Again, I heard one psychologist say that with this kind of trauma, the children are not the problem, the parents are. And problem in the sense that, for example, Sonia's case where her mother was not a um, straight cut problem. She didn't decide to be Tanya's problem. but her problem became Tanya's problem. My situation was the same in the sense that um, my mother was going through separation. And because of her heaviness, emotional brokenness, and dismantling, because of living in a situation where she gave up. We were walking back and forth for miles just to get to church, just to get to school, living in our home where the landlord put us out like 20 times. But my father left. And when he left, he didn't make provision for us. And because she was so broken, I decided to take on that role and became my family's survivor. I told myself I would save them. But with that saving, I started to be affected because I now had to be hospitalized because of panic attacks. I couldn't hold it up because by right, that's not the role of a child. That's not what you were born to do. With childhood trauma, when the roles get reversed, you've just messed up that child. If you're talking to your mother and you're the one comforting mom and comforting dad, the roles have been reversed and you've just messed up that child. You may not plan it as parents. We never plan to do these things. We have our own problems going through. But one of the things I try to be very careful of is even with my own daughter, I try never ever to let her feel she has to be the comfort zone for me or the strength for me. Because once you make them feel that way, the next step is to question who is the parent? Who is the parent? Childhood trauma, the center of it is fear. That's the only thing that's captured in the child. Fear. The world is not safe. You don't know who to trust. Anybody who presents themselves to you will be disappointing. It is so different than acute trauma, which is things that happen to you in adulthood. It is very different. It is probably one of the most long lasting traumatic experiences anybody can go through because the sense of self is affected. With childhood trauma, when the person is healed from the situation, the thing that is left is the lingering sense of shame in the body, the lingering sense of guilt, the lingering sense of thwarted direction. You don't have no sense of self, no purpose. You feel like you're always going in the wrong direction. You question yourself a lot. This self doubt, self loathing. You're just so unsure of things. There's no confidence. The self esteem is messed up. The relationships that you get into become affected. That's one of the biggest things because guess what? Safety was always and should have always been in the attachment bonds. And this is from the parents. The parents must love on you, touch you in a not sexual way, but in a caring, nurturing way, that nurture system. Because guys, when your parents love on you, assure you, validate you, don't judge you, create safety zones for you, there is chemicals released in your bodies that tells the brain you're safe. You know that I wish we had more time to look at like case by case studies because the protein that is released, the cell expression changes, ladies. Those who are online, the expression of the very cell that God made you with, it changes. That there's the part of your brain that lights up. I remember one time, and I have to talk about it, even though so it's not something I like to talk about. When I did my body scan, I did a brain scan one time, and the doctor said that, "Are you married?" And I said, "Yes." And he asked if my husband stayed with me. And I said, "Yes." And he said, the part of your brain that was supposed to be nurtured and, receptive to touch and trust and physical touch and being vulnerable and expressive is completely dead. He said not even one spark is over there. And it could either be in yellow, because that would mean moderate, medium, green, which is, very active, flourishing. But he said it is in red. There is nothing going on over there. Your brain actually shuts itself down on that side. And I was constantly living in my feelings. My emotional part was the part I reasoned from. There was no logical reasoning happening. And because of that, I had a lot of walls, and I was married. There are a lot of walls that for me to intercept a message, it's a lot of breaking down. And that is why there were a lot of arguments in the marriage, a lot of, barriers. And
Yeah.
because, listen, the vulnerability can't be happening. And that's childhood trauma. It goes with you in adulthood, and it shapes who you become, how you play out your relationships. It affects everything around you. I didn't like friends. I don't want a best friend. I don't want a close friend. I don't want a body to attach themselves to me. When my sister and brother fighting over my mother's hand that the ring was on, the ring finger, I was walking by myself when they were in their own zone fighting over who get the lap, the right leg and the left leg sitting on her lap. I didn't want to be hugged. I didn't want to be touched, because it affected my sense of safety. Any moment now the other shoe was going to drop. That's the state of a child when they have been through life-threatening situations, whether emotionally or physically. Kids who are traumatized, guys, they don't know it. And they see trauma as normal. They see this as normal. At one point, I when my husband would make certain statements and say, sister, like something wrong. And I to me, I was saying, no, maybe you are just annoying, or maybe you are just sensitive, or maybe you are just always in your feelings, or maybe you are the problem. But then deep down inside of me, I felt like something was wrong with me. I felt like something was wrong, like I was weird, like I was off, like something never make right, something never connect right, something never attached right. Because how is it that I'm so angry all the time? Why is it that I'm always defensive and aggressive, and my main go-to was to trigger off every time the least little things? And it was in my studies of these things I realized that if it is hysteric, meaning that you're responding in a way that doesn't even call for, and the psychological term would be overreacted. If it is hysteric, then you know it is historic. It's coming from what your body is reminded of. It's something that is living in your body that was not dealt with. Your brain has not closed the gap of that experience. And year after year and situation after situation, it's going to be replaying it in some ways that you are going to even wonder. And it leaves you with a lot of apologizing to do. Either you apologize or you just pretend like it never happened. You just go and live and people think you're cool. Because I was dubbed as that, and some people liked it and hailed it. Oh, Shanice is just so strong. Shanice is just so firm, and this, that. But it was coldness. No affection, no emotion, no expression. And you can't even tell because, hey, she's friendly. She's always involved. She's doing this, doing that, doing that. But guess what? Complete wreck in terms of emotions. See what Renee went through? That will wreck anybody's sense of self. Anybody's sense of self. Going through a rape situation, molestation, Samantha, that would be another topic, because the effects of a rape, it's beyond what we could talk about in 10 minutes or 30 minutes. Beyond that. Because what is normal to Renee now? Which world is the real world? You are a child and you're supposed to be protected. Which world is the real world? Tanya's story, her mother was not well mentally. Which world is the real world? Is it that people behave this way because of normal things, or is it that the illness caused mom to be sick, bipolar, and so she's manic? No, something caused mom to be bipolar in the first place. There is a root cause. Always will be. Always will be. And we're women of faith. We know that trauma that is unhealed opens door to spiritual attack, opens door to oppression, opens door to low faith. We know that these things will happen. I wish we had time to go into it, but we really don't. Um, when we get to like the wrapping up in terms of how to help, I'll shed some more light on another few points.
Okay, thank you so much, Renee. Over to you, Tanya.
Just leaning forward to turn on my microphone. Honestly, I can't even really add to what Shanice and Renee have said. Really, I just like to say that again, trauma, childhood trauma, the child may not always look, they may or may not always look ugly and dysfunctional and bad. When I was a teenager, when I got baptized and got into church, I found church as my safe place. I became very involved. I became very tied to everything that happened and very attached to the saints. I like idolized pretty much the saints above my family that I even lived with, um, because I guess I just found it to be such a safe place. But I also was such a people pleaser, because you kind of growing up in church to participate. If you're humble in church, if you're humble, you please people. To me, that was how it was back then, definitely. And I've had to really acknowledge that about myself and work on coming out of that. You really can't serve God wholeheartedly and be a people pleaser all at the same time. So I just wanted to say quickly that childhood trauma misconception is that it always looks maybe ugly and dysfunctional or messy. Like I was well behaved, involved in as much as I could be, but I was still very much a deeply broken girl, like very broken. Um, yeah, very broken, and that would cause some of my behavioral issues going. Later, sometimes churches say, oh, this girl loves man or whatever. I'm just a broken girl looking for love. That's what happens. And yes, it might be sin or whatever to date, whatever. But at the end of the day, there's a hole in my heart, and I'm looking for something to fill it. And like, thanks be to God, now I understand. Thanks be to God, now I understand that He can satisfy me. But as a child growing up, the teen years, the early 20s, you don't understand. So anyway, trauma, it really can look different for everyone, but I very much feel that the general person experiences some type of trauma, and I think it definitely needs to be looked into some more. That's all I'll say for now.
Okay, that's another point that I wanted to come out. If it affects behavior, and as she mentioned that it's different in terms of how it will be able to display. You might have some who is withdrawn or who is just their brokenness is hidden, and while some will just act out and be why because I guess I just want to just do my own thing because I don't. I'm not just not into people telling me what to do because something is underlying. So we get that coming out. And one other point that we want to know if does trauma if it cause mental challenge if it does we that came out tonight because we when Tanya mentioned her mom's story she said that she realized that something may have been um, that have affected her that would have pushed her into that state of mental ill health. So we have that coming out. And as we are going down, we want to look at how does one cope during during trauma. How do they cope? What would you say to them? How do they cope? What do they do? And does it mean if they don't get counseling, if they won't be healed? Over to you, Tanya. I'm going to go back with you.
Okay, so I want to be I want to be clear. I think coping with trauma is different than healing from trauma. I wrote down, this point about coping. I was thinking that coping really is like living your best, maybe trying to ignore the actual trauma or its effects in your life. And I think that many people just are coping. They're maybe ignoring or ignoring the trauma totally, maybe excusing the things that happened that led to it or the people that caused it, or explaining away the issue instead of really confronting it. So for example, like I said, my way of coping when I was a teenager and in the church, my way of coping and the way that I understood it then really is, I had to move away from my mom so I could live with my dad so I could get saved. And it is good and it is beautiful and I'm thankful to be saved. God knows I'm not saying that that was a problem, but my that was coping um, with trauma. Instead of now healing has me looking at how has this trauma really affected me? How has it really destroyed things in my life? How has it really how has it really affected me? And how have I overcome, or how am I overcoming this? So I think coping versus healing is definitely very different. And you also asked about, is healing possible without counseling? So first I wrote, yes, because personally, I haven't received any counseling yet. However, when I was writing notes to myself, I thought, you know what? Healing is not possible without counseling, because whether it's the Spirit of God counseling you or someone that He's using to counsel you, you need counsel. There is no way to heal without counsel. You may not be able to get professional counseling or connected to any specific counselor or therapy. But if you don't allow the Spirit of God Himself to counsel you, you cannot possibly heal. So, in short, you may not need a person, or it would be great to have a person. And as the body of Christ, we need each other to survive. So, I think full healing is not likely without human counseling. However, no healing is possible without the counseling of the Holy Spirit, for sure. That's my quick answer. I'm just trying to go quickly. I feel like we're over time, so I'll come off the mic.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Renee.
I agree with what you said. I agree a whole lot. For me, I don't think that I would have started the healing process without getting counseling. Um, I remember that my therapist actually wanted to perform hypnosis on me as a part of healing, but that was when I actually stopped going to the psychologist, because I didn't want anyone to get all up in my head like that. And as you mentioned, healing from the Holy Spirit, that is when my actual healing started, because I realized how much I needed God, because during all of my hurt and pain, there was a time when I questioned God, like, God, where are you? Why are you allowing these things to happen to me? Why did you permit these things to happen to me? And so I started praying a lot more. I started just worshiping God more. And that's when I actually started to heal. And speaking about healing, we have to learn to forgive. Yes, they have wronged us. Yes, he raped me. Yes, he molested me. But I learned that through forgiveness, I started healing. I realized that having an unforgiving spirit, I always say this, is like cancer eating yourselves out from the inside out. And forgiveness is not necessarily for the person who have wronged us. It's really for us, because once we start to forgive these persons, our healing process actually starts. And that is something that I have learned through my own experiences. I learned that I had to forgive in order for me to be healed. I had to get some form of counseling in order for me to be healed. Am I fully healed? No, I'm not. But I am still being counseled by the Holy Spirit. I am still asking God to help me to continue forgiving those who have wronged me, and to have just to have a closer relationship with Him, so I can be fully healed.
Awesome, awesome. I tell you. Over to you, Shanice. Unmute.
Thank you. The question is coping versus healing. Ladies, you are correct, because you don't have to cope with traumatic experiences. This is one of the another misconception that, oh, you can't be healed from trauma, PTSD, CPTSD, which is childhood or complex trauma. But the truth is, every bit of trauma can be healed. Every single one can be healed. Now, the problem is the time frame is unbearable for a lot of people. Not just the time frame, but the process of healing. Because healing is not cute and nice and dandy. Healing exposes you to your wounds. It forces you to look within. And traumatized people cannot look within. It's been so long. It is never the norm for them to look inside, notice their own bodies. That word is so powerful in counseling. Notice, take notice. I had a client who could not even breathe, take a deep breath. And Samantha does this also on her program, where the breathing exercise, because it regulates your heartbeat, it regulates your body functions, and it helps the brain to go online. It helps the brain to go online, because with trauma, your brain is online. Coping would come first, because we may not know the route to healing just yet. So the best thing next is to cope. Because if you don't cope, you're going to die. Your body will expire. So, because there's just certain amount of pain and woe and despair your body can take. So it has to find adaptive behaviors to survive. Some people, it's drinking. And remember, guys, coping is not always nice and Christian either. Coping can be very sinful, the things that we choose to do to survive. Some people have a lot of sex. Some people don't want no man at all. Some people don't want nobody. Some people turn to same sex. Some people tell pure lies. Some people just all up in a people's face. Some persons, they are wild because it brings this thrill. They need to feel. They need to feel something, to feel alive. Yes, they just out and wild. Some persons have a lot of partners. Some people, they get over religious because they feel like now you're living at Jesus' feet, I'm good to go. Over religious. Some start cutting. They don't want to die really, but they want to cause some hurt, cause a little bit of hurt. And some persons are suicidal. They just feel like they want the pain to stop. And you see, this is why we really need to become educated, because even those who are suicidal, guys, they need so much compassion, because the aim is not to be sinful against God and your life. The aim is not to go to a devil's hell because, oh, I took my life. The aim is to make the pain stop. To make the pain stop. I remember one time when I was going through my traumatic situation and it was, rolling over into my marriage, I wanted to feel so low, like the pain that I was feeling. I wanted to feel physically low. I was emotionally low and I wanted to feel physically low. And the lowest place I could find was under my bed. I couldn't get any lower than that. And if I could sink myself in the earth, I would. But I wanted to feel so low. And when I was under the bed, just trying to express all the hurt and the pain and the crying and the bawling, I couldn't even find tears at one point. I just sat there, just done, just sat there, and I felt in myself, like I said, no, God, this I gonna kill me. Like this just feel like it's going to just evaporate my very being in the moment. It just couldn't get any worse. And this symptom of trauma, which is alexithymia, where you can't put the words into place, like Renee said, there's no words, because human words become unlimited in trauma. You cannot put it in words because there's no language for it. It is one of the experiences in life where psychologists have found there's no human words to pinpoint what you're feeling. There's really none. And the best you can do is to create a narrative for others to understand. But there's no words really to nail it in such a way that they really, really get and understand what you're feeling. Only your body tells that story well enough. And sometimes so unwell that people end up killing themselves. So you asked about coping. You don't have to cope. But sadly, many of us resort to coping and coping alone because it's the easiest thing to do. But coping, let's look at coping a little bit. Coping is intellectually bypassing, just being aware, and you tell yourself a story and you say, yes, this happened to me, and the Lord said we must learn to forgive, and the Bible expects us to love each other. Yes, I'm moving on. And they ask you, sister, how are you? I'm blessed and highly favored. And you read a little book and you feel pumped up, and yes, but in your heart and in your body, you're still not there. And a lot of times you're at church, you might be crying and praying and worshiping, but people think you're under the anointing when you're really just bawling out of disgust and tired and pain and brokenness, and you're just done and overwhelmed. So that is really the intellectual passing, the bypassing, or we can spiritually bypass, religiously bypass. Those are coping methods. We pray away everything. When we know that the root wasn't a spiritual cause, the root was a physical cause, but because we're sidelining and we're distracting and we're sweeping under the rug and we're denying, we think we're dealing with it. But it's really not being dealt with. That is coping. So when you get to healing, as simple as I could put it, it's feeling what you feel, allowing yourself to feel what you feel and know what you know. So when the feeling of self-hate comes, it's like you're going up a hill, and when you reach the self-hate right here, you come back down with coping. But when you get to self-hate, you step over the surface stuff for real and you keep going. And this is where you feel like that self-hate is going to box it on and kill you. But guess what? You're not stopping. You're still going until you reach over the self-hate. And then you've reached a level where you can accept what you know. Yes, I don't like myself. Yes, it doesn't feel good. Yes, this is a dirty process. Yes, it's going to have to take me back to the day this happened, that happened. Yes, it's going to bring me back to the fact that I can't help myself. Yes, it's going to bring me back to what my parents did, what my brother did, what my uncle did, what the neighbor did to me. But guess what? It's feeling what you feel. A lot of us can't face the feelings. It's the emotion that's coming that feels like they're going to kill us. We can't bear to feel it. You cannot afford to feel it. It doesn't feel good. It feels like you're taking your breath away. That's how it feels, like it's taking your very breath away. And that is why a lot of people can't breathe. I tell a lady to breathe one time, to open her chest and lungs to breathe, and she started crying. She can't even settle down to breathe. It's not possible to breathe, because breathing means you're letting go. But she's so secured and closed in that breathing is even denied. Healing also takes in forgiveness of the self. We're not worried too much about forgiving the person just yet. With healing, you start working on yourself. And then automatically, healing of the person, the offender, will come. Forgiveness of the person will come. So it doesn't mean that the person necessarily sinned against you, like in Tanya's case, where a part of it was she would start holding the church folks in higher esteem than the family, because the family was drama and problems. But at the end of it, if you heal, you can now see your family for the worth that they have. Seeing what you see, knowing what you know, feeling what you feel, and finding the beauty in it, whether or not they're up to par. With coping, it was finding the safety zone in the church and elevating them. They're better, they're safer. So that's the difference between healing and the coping. So you forgive yourself, you work on yourself. There's another thing that must happen in healing, guys. Must happen. It's called the visceral effect. When, let's say you get nervous. And you get nervous and you feel it in your belly button. Or you hear that your child is in danger. And you feel it in your belly button. Like you feel that weakness in your belly button. You know what happened? Your brain and your mind just connected with the message passed to your body, in your belly, the visceral effect in your tummy. With healing, it's the same way. And I didn't know that. I did not know that until the Lord allowed me to experience it. Because here I was being a mental health advocate and never knew what a visceral effect was. Never knew. So when the Lord directed me to counseling, and that is why I say we cannot disregard counseling. The Lord directed me to a group of ladies who were skilled in counseling for the matter that I was dealing with. And after he directed me to counseling, he said, now you can take up the Bible. Now open the word. And when I opened up the Bible one day on the staircase, and I felt like this was it, I experienced on those steps the visceral effect. All along, it was just an intellectual healing. I knew the right thing. I knew that life would go on. People say it. I tell people that all the time. But my body didn't believe it. So your mind, your body, and your spirit must agree. They come together and finally the gap is closed. Because the body is the bridge in this thing. You see, coping is mouth talk. You see, some of us think that counseling for trauma is just sit and talk. Counseling for trauma is body work. It's body work. The work is in the body. The body must agree. And what you find right now is that a lot of persons are only healed intellectually. But the body is not befriended, as Dr. Van der Kolk would say. The body is not befriended because the body is the bridge. It is the body that is the bridge to the healing. The body is the bridge. The body is the bridge. It is what keeps the score, not necessarily your memory, not our minds. The body is the bridge. So how can we help? I'm going to quickly go through some points. How can we help? If you've never had that nurture and care in your childhood days, as Tanya did, you need to get a pro maternal care group. It may not have happened with mom and dad. They're the original carers and nurturers. But if it didn't happen, it's not too late. There's hope. You can find a pro maternal, which means people who are for you after you've grown. People, and it could be a family member like a pastor, a teacher, a coach, somebody that is a consistent mentor. Because what is going to happen is the same chemicals that were released in the child when they were cared for and when they were made to feel safe is the same ones that will and can be still created as an adult. So there's hope. Find somebody that, and for Tanya, I always see her say her husband was that safety. He helps a lot with that. He helps a lot. So remember that the safety and the healing is in the attachment bonds. It's who we as humans attach to for direction, for care, for safety. So find somebody who you know for sure you've tested them. They're proven that guess what? Guess what? They are for you and not against you.
Yeah.
They are for your healing. When you have that gut, there is nothing next that you can't do. Because little by little, you start feeling safe and trusting the world again. Not everybody is going to hurt me. Not everybody is going to disappoint me. You will have that sense of safety again over time. The next one is avoid the patch jobs. Avoid the jobs that are just for coping. Avoid those things because fixing symptoms and covering surface layered issue is going to be a big problem. So tell the truth. Tell the truth. If you know that you're having a bad day because you were molested as a child and the memories are coming back, stop telling people, or when you go to speak to somebody, or if you are willing to do counseling and you're talking, don't give the person another story. Tell the truth. Once the truth gets out there, you have no other choice but to deal with it. It's now out there. You have to go and deal with it now. So tell the truth, face the truth. It is in the truth where you are going to find the healing. In the truth. The next one is if you're a parent online, you need to get educated as how to bring back those nurturing skills. Don't undermine your presence in the lives of your child. Don't undermine your touch. Don't undermine your presence, your care, your nurture, your reach. Don't undermine it because this is what's going to shape your child to becoming or not becoming the adult that we want in society. Faith is another thing that really helps people to move along and take action after faith, because I'm telling you guys, you need faith. You need faith. I saw somebody say Jesus and therapy. Right now, counselors are looking into how they can merge faith with their practices. You see that? Where trauma is concerned, because anybody who does not believe in anything higher than themselves usually gets hopeless, because that's how devastated trauma can be. You need something higher to hold on to and look forward to. Sometimes, sadly, even if it's a lie, you need something that is going to cause hope, cause that need to live again. What's keeping you alive? What's keeping you going? Faith, hope.
Yeah.
You need that to keep living, because that's going to now lead to your why, your purpose for living, my reason for living, my source of survival. Faith is shielding you while you're getting your healing and you're going through your counseling. It is your faith that's upholding you while you're going through. And the last one that I have, there's so many more, But Samantha, as I said, we need to wrap up because I know it's getting late. The last one that I have for tonight is take action. Yes, we're not responsible for what happened to us, but it is our responsibility to be healed. Healing is ours. It is our responsibility. We don't understand why this but guess what? The healing is our job. The healing is our job, and the beauty of discovering ourselves in it. It's not to kill us, but it is for us to even recognize the God we serve. If there wasn't a problem, we wouldn't know that He was wonderful counselor. And this was something the Lord revealed to me one time when I was asking Him, God, teach me about trauma apart from what I know by studies. Teach me about trauma. Because when God tells you something, it trumps every theory that you ever had. Anybody who think that they were the best in this and that and specialists, I don't even care what you want to dub me as. Yes, she's a trauma specialist. Yes, she's a trauma coach, trauma advisor, this, that. But when I want, what I want is for the Lord to teach me how to mingle with the spirits of man to the point where I can feel a traumatized person and know what He's saying to do to close that gap between the body and the mind and the spirit. And one thing that I recognized was that the trauma can bring out fruits. The trauma can bring out beauty, because that part of man will only know God in a particular circumstance. It will not come out in cute and beautiful times alone. Wonderful counselor comes when you are batter bruised. The Prince of Peace comes when you are troubled on every side. No refuge, your enemies. Listen, in the Bible, the Lord encourages lamenting. God, where are you? Soul crying out. David can't take it no more. Lord, where are you? No, man. Them people are going to mash me down, man. Me can't live if you not step in. The attributes of God is displayed. And this is what takes us to recognizing that He has created more in you than what you think is there. And what happens to us is not nearly as important as what your true self holds. If we know our true selves, Tanya, Renee, Samantha, those of you who are online, if you tap into your true self, you will realize that everything that happens to you is minimal, because your true self is untouched. It's untapped, Renee. No rape, no molestation can't touch who you are. That what happened to you is now your subconscious struggling to get over, because it's not necessarily you, it's what happened to you. You have $1,000, you step on it, you dirty it up, you spit on it. Did a dollar's value come off, Renee? None. Not even 1 cent. All we need for this, take up the money, clean it off, brush it off, clean it, wash it off. If you want to stretch it out, so when you go to the shop, you're still getting $1,000 worth of things. Your value was never diminished by a rape. Your rape is for the people who will be attached to your story, because they're waiting on you. They're waiting on you, and all of our mess and our stories are stored up for people who will give God the glory. It hurts us, yes, but at least now you know that Renee is a survivor, that Tanya is a survivor, and she will now help the girls whose mothers are mentally ill. And Renee will now help the girls and the women who feel like their purpose has been tarnished. But guess what? You have another guest coming, devil, because, hey, it's no me just a start. No me just a start. So guess what, ladies? It is a lot. And of course, I encourage anybody, before you get to ministering to people, ensure that we are there first. But there's so much of you and I that are untapped, and it is our responsibility to keep going deeper until we've gotten there. Back over to you, Samantha.
Wow, what a profound night it has been. I tell you, oh my God. And right now I'm reading uh, somewhat of a quote. It says, if someone has hurt you, take time to try understand them, their childhood trauma, their mood, etc. Don't do this to simply find excuse for them. Do it to help them heal. To depersonalize the pain. When you seek compassion for them, you wind up having more compassion for yourself too. Beautiful. It has been a wonderful night. It has been a profound night. It has been a healing night. It has been an anointed night. Tanya wanted to preach and call out the preach outside of me when I'm trying to behave. And then I thought I was provoking Renee to sing when I started singing. And then I tell you, Shanice wanted to, I don't even know, prophesy, minister, everything. It was just awesome here tonight. And as we're getting ready to close, I'm just going to have each person sharing their final thought with us as we are going to go. And as you mentioned, we always do our breathing exercise before we go. So they're going to leave their final point with you, their thought, what they want to leave with you as you go tonight. And then we are going to do our breathing exercise. And if you have not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And thank you for commenting. I'm grateful. I'm happy to have you here tonight, sharing and viewing and listening and just being here. So over to you, Renee. Share your final thought with us.
Thank you, Samantha. Well, this has been so inspiring for me. Just this week, I stumbled on a quote from Carl Jung. I'm not sure who he is, but I just saw the quote and it says, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And I remembered it when I heard what the previous speaker said. I'm not so good with names. Forgive me. I remembered it. So I want to tell somebody who is listening, somebody who may be watching on replay, that you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. So God has a purpose for you, right? So don't allow your past to determine really who you are in a negative sense, right? So remember that you have a purpose. If God has done it for me, and all of us on this panel tonight, God can do it for you. And I have a theme song, Samantha. You're pulling me to sing. It says, so I'm here today because God kept me. I'm alive today only because of His grace. He kept me. God kept me. He kept me. So I wouldn't let go. And I know that God's mercy will keep you. So someone say, no, I couldn't share everything about my story. I couldn't share it all. But if you may permit me, I for my series that I had, you guys can go over to my channel, Ren McEllis, and watch those videos, and you will get a little bit more of some of my experiences. But stay strong, have faith, and believe in yourself.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Over to you, Shanice.
All right, all right. Thank you for that, Renee. That was so beautiful. Very, very, very good. My last thought is for the night is To render your healing as unimportant and undoable. So whenever you feel like, oh, this is not that important, it's undoable, I just can't bother. This is what you're doing. You're rendering your life as ineffective. It's like you're telling yourself you have no purpose, you have no importance. So it doesn't matter how hard it gets, it is going to get hard. Prepare for hard. Well, let me tell you something. You see, the day it starts to cost you, you're going to get moving. Maybe right now it's not costing you anything. Maybe it's not affecting your job. Maybe it's not affecting your marriage just yet. Maybe it's not affecting your health. But the day it starts to cost you is the day you're going to realize time is up. Let's go healing. So to render your life and your healing as undoable and hard is to really render your life as ineffective. And you are not ineffective. So take action. A lot of times, Samantha, we hear these nice things on the live and we leave motivated. That's the generation we live in. We love motivation and we love information because we like to learn and feel bright. But guess what? Brilliance doesn't move anybody. Brilliance does not move you because tomorrow when you wake up, you might remember one and two things that were said, but it doesn't change your situation. What will happen is step away from the microwave effect of this generation, the patchwork, and get moving. Do the things that you are advised to do. Reach out deliberately for help. No backups, no by accident, but deliberately. Because maybe you don't understand, but you're worth it. You are worth it. And so get deliberate, take action. No autopilot. Get deliberate, take action.
Thank you so much, Shanice, for that. Over to you, Tanya.
Ah, oh my God. Where is it? Um, oh, I'm lost. Oh, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I lost the tab. I apologize. I was actually just taking notes from the other women, and oh my goodness, tonight has just been so filling. I'm so thankful once more. I would just like to add that everyone on here, you can thrive in spite of the trauma. Uh, all of our traumas may look, of course, very different. And maybe the effects on our lives may look very different, but you can still thrive in spite of. And I just want to encourage you to ask God to give you a glimpse, a little tiny glimpse of how He sees you, because in order to feel like you matter, like Shanice is saying, to render your healing as unimportant is to make your life pretty much to make it seem like your whole life is ineffective, and it really is not. If we could just get a glimpse and understanding of who God has created us to be, what He has created us to do, the people that He has created us specifically to minister to, we would take our lives a lot more seriously. We would take our stories a lot more seriously, and we would take Him more seriously. So I just want to encourage you. You can thrive in spite of your trauma. Like Shanice said, every bit of trauma can be healed. And I hold on to that word because I'm believing for complete healing. And I just want to encourage each and every one of you, God, let us see ourselves like you see us, so that we can understand the value that we carry, the impact that we carry, that God ordained in the first place for us. In Jesus' name, that's all.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Shanice, Renee, and Tanya for being with me this evening. I really, really love having you and appreciate your time and your effort being here with me. Thank you so much once more. Audience, thank you so much for being here and for commenting, for sharing, for liking, for subscribing. And we meet here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So if you're in Jamaica, it's 7 o'clock your time, 7 p.m. If you're in the US or Canada, it's 8 p.m. And we meet here every Wednesday. And I love Wisdom Wednesday so much. I tell you, on Wednesdays, it's like a holiday for me. I come alive. Once I like Tuesday, and even my daughter know this. Like tomorrow is Wisdom Wednesday, mommy. Yes. So I say Happy Wisdom Wednesday, and we continue to strive and to thrive to be and to become a better version of ourselves. And it cannot be overemphasized. We hear it so much tonight that you have to be honest, and that's one of my things to say. You have to be honest in order for you to be and to become a better version of yourself. You have to be honest with what is happening on the inside. You can't pretend you have to take off the fandangles and everything and just come pure and clean and not say I'm well when I'm not. But to deal with all the things that sometimes you may not can tell everybody, but help is there, it is there, whatever you have gone through. Somebody's going through it, somebody has gone through it, and somebody will go through it. So don't be afraid, don't be ashamed to share and to get help for what you need. Thanks again, and remember to subscribe. Yes, I'm going to put the link in the description for Renee's channel and for Shanice group for trauma. So if you need help, she's on Facebook. She have a trauma group and all of that. You would have heard it in our introduction. And I'm going to add the links in the description so that you can go back and find all that you need if you need that help. All right, it's that time. Please get yourself in a relaxed mood. And we are gonna let out some of the steam and all the tension and all of these things as we close the curtain down for Wisdom Wednesday Live talk show. Happy Wisdom Wednesday. Our life experiences shape who we are today. God has already created us with specification and uniqueness that no trauma, unfortunate situation, or circumstances can never hinder our divine purpose. Thank you for that, Arita. Profound. Get yourself in a relaxed position. If you want to close your eyes, that's okay. And we are going to get into our exercise. I'm going to count you off. When you inhale, you're going to hold that breath in your chest. Hold it until you feel it. And then you're going to softly let it go through your mouth. We're going to do it a couple of times and then we're off. One, two, three. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, hold it in your chest. Exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. One last time, and we're going to hold everything and we're going to let it out. Inhale and exhale. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for subscribing. Happy Wisdom Wednesday. Have yourself a wonderful rest of the night. Bye bye.